Keyna and I go to City Charter High School. Today I'll be interviewing with Cindy Cohen, who is the owner and president of Cindy Cohen School of Driving, LLC. I'm interviewing her today at Aladdin's for my graduation project, which is about distracted driving. I'm very happy that she is here today so that I get to interview and get some useful information. So do you think parents have a large impact on passengers in their cars or their children, learning if a parent doesn't wear their seatbelt or fiddles on their phone, you think the child will grow up to be?
Yes, I think parents have a huge impact on their students. Unfortunately, the students pick up all of the parents' bad habits, and oftentimes, a parent has been driving for 30 or 40 years and they have bad driving habits, so they pass those on to their students, and they think that they're teaching them properly, and unfortunately they're not. And like I said before, I could give you a lot of different examples. For instance, when a student turns the wheel, they're supposed to always hold onto the wheel with both hands and use what's called hand over hand or push and pull motion. Parents oftentimes will just let the wheel spin back in their hand. That won't fly in the Department of Motor Vehicles. When that wheel spins, the chances of them filling you are pretty high. There's a lot of things that parents do incorrectly. Another one is not teaching a student how to use their mirrors properly. And they don't teach their student how to turn their head properly. So yeah, there's a lot of things that parents pass on to their kids, and they don't mean not to teach them properly. They just have their own bad habits formed, and they are passed on to their kids. Unfortunately, I get that all the time. I'll get a phone call from someone, and they'll say, I failed my test 3 times, and then I get them in the car and I can see exactly why they failed the test, because the parent had taught them incorrectly. And the department, when you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, you have to do it the way that they want it done.
Are the consequences strict enough when caught driving distracted, and what do you think that should be done when caught?
For just distractions?
While driving.
Okay. Specifically, what kind of, caught while driving? I guess that would be texting, right? Texting, it's worse than drinking and driving, okay? So yeah, do I think that it should be, seriously, should you get into a lot of trouble? Absolutely. I just put something on my website, or not on my website, actually on my Facebook page the other day, where there was a guy who was killed. He was young, I think he was 19 or 20 years old, and he was in an accident, and he was behind a tractor trailer, and they went back into his phone records, okay, and he was texting someone 11 times in 11 minutes prior to the accident. He ran straight into the tractor trailer, and I don't know exactly what happened, but there was a school bus right behind him. That school bus ran into him, okay? Again, you can see it it's actually on my Facebook page. I have it on Cindy Cohen School of Driving, and it's on my Facebook page, where you look at the tractor trailer and you look at the school bus. The school bus went up over the tractor trailer, so it's up in the air, and you can see it's a tractor trailer. Now, this was a 4-door Ford Explorer with a large bed on the back of it, like an 8-foot bed. You cannot determine what the vehicle is until you actually read the article to see that there's a ton of steel just smashed up in between the bus and the tractor trailer. He was killed, and there was one kid that was killed on the school bus who was 6 years old, and there were some injuries and stuff. So yeah, consequences, they have to be very strict, and I don't know that I think they're strict enough. It's hard to catch someone who's texting, there's a lot of different distractions that could get you into an accident. And I always recommend to parents to not let, when a teenager gets their license at first, the very first thing that they want to do is they want to go with their friends shopping or to the football game or whatever. And I always have parents say to me, well, my kid is such a good kid. She's a straight A student. She's involved with the newspaper at school and youth group. It doesn't have anything to do with a good student or a bad student. It has to do with experience, okay? And how much experience do you have? So I always recommend to parents, don't let them go out. Don't let them drive with other teenagers. Statistically, the statistics are so much higher, 75% higher. If you're in a vehicle when you first get your license with a friend or a sibling, okay, that you're going to have an accident. So you should always drive alone for the first year. Kids don't like that. They don't like to hear that. But that's what my suggestion is. And of course I did it with my own children. And believe me, I don't have perfect kids. They didn't like it, and I did catch them sneaking around sometimes. But, because that's normal. But, yeah.
So have you ever been a distracted driver?
Yes. Yes. Of course I have. I've been distracted in many ways. I mean, when my children were younger, turning around, thank God nothing ever happened. Sometimes the telephone ringing, or just distracted when I see accidents. That's probably the biggest thing for me, because when I see an accident, I always want to analyze it, being an instructor and everything. So I look at the accident, that's distracting, because I'm always trying to figure out exactly what happened. I can always give you examples. I just recently saw it. I think it was the worst accident I've ever seen, and I've seen so many of them. But there was someone crossing the roadway in a residential area, and a vehicle came around a bend and took too wide of a bend and hit the pedestrian, ran them over, completely ran them over. Their legs came out the back of the car, and they killed them. And it was just devastating, absolutely devastating. And there were firemen there, and ambulance, and they brought in life flight and everything. They ended up not taking the person on to life flight. They left because I guess the coroner came. The fireman took off his coat, put it over the guy's legs and everything. It was terrible.
And even being a passenger in the car, I look and see an accident, like, what happened?
Yeah, everybody does that.
I have a 4-year-old sister, and whenever my mom's driving, my sister will complain. So my mom tries to turn around and either comfort or discipline her.
Yeah, that's so scary.
I tell her, no, I'll just handle her. Because I'd rather me try to help her.
Right. That is scary when you turn around. And that's one of the things you'll hear repetitively from me. You never, ever look down. When we go through vehicle controls, the very first part of our lesson, everything that I teach you in vehicle controls, you do not look at those. You need to know where they are at all times, okay? You can't look down and look for them. As soon as you look down, what's going to happen? You're going to have an accident. The only thing that I teach my students that you ever look down at is the speedometer, and it's very quickly, it's down and up. If you cannot catch it in a 1/10 of a second or a 1/16 of a second, you look back up, make sure your car is 100% under control, and then look back down again, quickly.
So do you know any of the consequences for a license suspension?
Yeah, you could. Well, it just would depend on what they would cite you for. You could get a fine. You could have a 30-day suspension, a 60-day suspension. You can have your license taken away. It all depends on what the violation is, where the violation is. Usually, when it's around people like school zones, work zones, emergency vehicles, it's always more severe. The punishment is, you can get points, and like I said, large fines. And then after so many points, you have to take. After so many points, you'll lose your license, or it will be suspended. Oftentimes, the judge will have you take what's called a special points exam, which is right in this book right here. Depending upon what the offense is. Driving under the influence, you can have a lot of different punishments or or you can be convicted differently. Sometimes you could have a large fine. Oftentimes they'll have you take special courses, depending upon what happened while you were driving under the influence. If you were in an accident, somebody was killed, something like that, you can spend time in jail. It could be a life sentence. I know of one case that I had read about a few years ago. There was a drunk driver who hit a 13-year-old girl and killed her. He got 13 years in prison. He got 1 year for each year of her life. There's so many different things that I see out there or I read. I see sometimes people who have gotten DUIs repeatedly and they've never had their license taken away from them. Some people could get a DUI and have their license taken away with just one offense. You know, I think that they should be taken away right away. I have my own feelings with the DUIs, and when I have people come to me to ask me to retrain them because they have had a DUI, I won't do it. I try to steer away from that because I just don't want the responsibility of ever hearing again that they did it again. I just stay away from that.
If you could enforce any driving-related laws, what would they be and why?
Driving-related law. To enforce it. I guess I would probably, driving-related laws. I could think of a lot of different things. Stop signs are one. People do not stop at stop signs. They run through them. There's so many accidents at stop signs. Again, I can give you scenarios. There was one that happened locally to a Pittsburgh police officer within the last 8 months. He was 3 months away from retirement. He had 2 children who were under 10 years old. I don't know if anyone remembers the story or not, but he was at a 4-way intersection and he had stopped properly, and there was a tractor trailer, and the tractor trailer was coming down the hill, and the tractor trailer missed the stop sign. So we always call that not getting the whole picture, not really seeing what's going on when you're approaching an intersection. So the police officer pulled out, the tractor trailer ran right into him and killed him. So whose fault was it? Well, it was the tractor trailer's fault because he didn't stop, but there's a lot of different things to think about in that scenario. There's also what's called defensive driving, and I'm getting away from the question, I'm sorry. But there's a thing that's called defensive driving as well. So when you're at an intersection, you need to know, okay, it's a 4-way intersection, but how many stop signs are there? So you look all the way around, you get that whole picture of everything that's going on around you. Even though everyone has a stop sign doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is going to stop. So being defensive when you're pulling forward, you're still looking both ways, checking both ways to make sure that nothing's coming at you. Okay? Because you can't say, oh, everyone's supposed to stop. There's 4 stop signs here. It's not the real world. It doesn't happen that way, unfortunately. And he lost his life because of it. So he died. And like I said, I don't know if anyone remembers the story or not. But there's a lot of stuff out there. You know, there's a lot of different stories relating to that. So making people stop properly at stop signs, that's one thing I would like to see. And not so much with the law, but one of the things that I see all the time, and if I had enough time, I would write about it, but I don't have the time, are things on the road from different boroughs and from PennDOT that's not properly, the signs aren't proper or the lines aren't proper. And there's mistakes made out there, even on like in construction zones. There's just so many times where I see it where a lot of the drivers wouldn't even realize that there's mistakes made. And I'll only give one scenario, I know, because I go on. But for instance, on the Parkway, and I see this on a daily basis, driving down the Parkway, I go into a construction zone, and there will be a sign every 20 to 30, 40 feet. And I never can determine whether it's an active work zone or not. They may have 4 signs covered, and then you get to the next sign, The fifth sign, that's uncovered with the blinking light, which makes it an active zone. Then I'll go another 20 or 30 feet, and that next sign will be covered. So there's an inconsistency all the time with the way that the signs are. That's one thing I would like to see change too. I've seen on the road where the lines are painted the wrong way on the road. And a lot of this stuff is just overlooked by municipalities again, or no one realizes that they're doing it incorrectly, or PennDOT. That's something I'd like to see change too.
How do you feel about yellow lights? Do you think people should stop, or do you think they should just try to ease through it cautiously?
Well, it depends on where you are according to where the light is, okay? So if you have enough room, you should stop. You should never go through a yellow light. But there's something called, what the law is I'm drawing a blank. It's being past the point of no return. So when you're going into the intersection, okay, and you're already almost into the intersection and the light changes, that's past the point of no return, and you can still get through it and you still have enough time before that light changes. Okay? So yeah, I think you should stop definitely before that.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I wish you luck in everything.
Do you have any questions for me?
Questions for you. Do you have your permit? Okay. I didn't really think. Have you studied for the knowledge test?
Something reading the driver's manual is my favorite part of it is taking the test to see how I might do. So right now I'm studying on my birth certificate. What else do you need to take a permit test, like paperwork?
Paperwork, everything is right in your manual, okay, and it will explain to you right inside the Pennsylvania driver's manual exactly what you need to have to go and fill out the application, which you'll need like your birth certificate, social security card, as long as you're a United States citizen, okay. If you're an international student, you need a lot more documents. You need a physical. Physical has to be updated, I think past 90 days. If it's older than 90 days, don't quote me. I think that you have to have another one. You have to take an eye exam, and you have to take the application to the department, pay a certain amount of money. I don't know what it is because I don't do that part of it. It's between $30 and $40 to obtain your PA permit.
Do you have any tips for new drivers?
That I could go on for hours and hours. I think the most important thing is just to take your time. I think making sure that you have the proper amount of hours in according to the Department of Motor Vehicles is one of the most important things, and to make sure that you have the experience you need to get out there on the road safely. A lot of times I have parents call in and they'll say, I just want him to get his license, please hurry up. And I always say, you know what, I might not be a right fit for you and your child, because I want to make sure that they've covered everything that needs to be covered, so when your student is actually on the road and applying everything, he knows how to deal with every situation. You know, situations like hydroplaning or flooding, snow, nighttime driving, fog, what do you do? Any kind of adverse condition, normal conditions, space cushion, all of that, it all has to be taught to the student. So trying to get your license as quickly as you possibly can is a bad idea. I'm not an advocate of it. I think that you should take your time. I agree with the Department of Transportation. They want a student to have 65 driving hours. Parents have to sign a document if the student's under 18 years old, stating that they've gotten those hours in and they're broken down. Sometimes I have parents tell me that they want to just go ahead and sign the document. If they sign it, I will not take the student to the Department of Motor Vehicles. I don't want to read about them in the paper on a weekend. So that's my best advice. Get a lot of hours in.
After getting my permit, I would love to come to your school and have you like as my instructor.
I would love to have you come to my school. I would. That would be great. And again, the gratifying part is the end result, making sure. And I don't take anyone to the department for an exam unless they're ready to go. Hi, my name is Cindy Cohen. I'm the owner of Cindy Cohen School of Driving, LLC. My phone number is 412-580-0027. I would like to thank Keyna for interviewing me today. She was a great interviewer, and I hope she got a lot of great information. If you're interested in contacting me, you can look at my website, which is www.drivingbythebest.com. Driving is D-R-I-V-I-G, by is B-U-Y, the THEBEST.com. The name of my school is Cindy Cohen School of Driving, LLC. If you Google Cindy Cohen School of Driving, you'll come up with a lot of different websites. You can read many of our reviews, learn about our school. You can go to my Facebook page, which also is, all you have to do is on Facebook, Google Cindy Cohen School of Driving, and you can look at the Facebook page, and there's hundreds of students with different stories. And thank you very much.